Welcome. My name is Noah Gibson, and I am a fifth grader here at HighPoint. If you are able, please stand and welcome the VFW Post 797 and American Legion Post 4719, who will post the colors. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and immediately following, you are free to join the HighPoint students in the singing of the national anthem. Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Noah and the Honor Guard. Everyone, please be seated. I know that most of you are wondering, who is that guy up front at the microphone? My name is Tim Scamfer, and I taught fifth graders right here at HighPoint for 21 years. Also, it was my privilege to be a part of the original staff that opened HighPoint Elementary in 1988. I retired from HighPoint in 2014, which is why an introduction is needed now. I am very relieved to see some familiar faces of colleagues that I worked with a decade ago. It's great to see all the new faces as well. When Mrs. Bauman called a few weeks ago, I was delighted to hear that HighPoint would once again be hosting a Veterans Day Assembly. It is a privilege and an honor to be a part of this special day once again. I extend a huge thank you to Mrs. Bauman, all of her volunteers, all of the staff who have helped prepare for today, and all of today's participants who will help us honor all of our special guests. So let's continue. Welcome students, teachers, parents, friends, and most importantly, all of our honored guests to HighPoint's 2023 Veterans Recognition Assembly. Welcome also to our special guests, the American Legion Post 797 and Veterans of Foreign Wars 4719. We also can't let today go by without giving a special shout out to the person I'm going to call our top VIP, who's seated right here behind me. Please welcome Marvin Rogers with service in World War II. We are so grateful to have you with us today. We were hopeful that a second World War II veteran, Mr. Dean Strebe, would also be able to be with us today. He's missing for the first time in 18 assemblies, but he's a little bit under the weather. But we give him a shout out as well. Just as we keep in our thoughts our friends and family who were not able to be here today. We are very excited and proud to celebrate Veterans Day together once again. This is a much honored tradition for us that we here at HighPoint have greatly missed, because it's been 4 long years since we have welcomed you all through our school doors, in part mainly to COVID and construction. Each year we hold this special event to say thank you to our veterans from our entire school family. Everything you see and hear today is planned and done in honor of all the veterans. Today we celebrate and honor you and your patriotic sacrifice and spirit. As veterans, you help protect our country and our freedom. We are forever grateful. So please enjoy this special and meaningful day. Next, fifth graders Alex Pose and Ben Dunlap will present readings on the significance of Veterans Day.
105 years ago, on November 11, 1918, World War I came to an end at 11 o'clock a.m., and so the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month became a very important and meaningful time in history. 8 years later, in 1926, Congress officially named the 11th of November as Armistice Day. Armistice means to stop fighting. Armistice Day was designated a national holiday by Congress in May of 1938. In 1954, President Eisenhower signed a bill changing November 11th from Armistice Day to Veterans Day, a day to honor all those who have served America in all wars, and a time for all Americans to rededicate themselves to a cause of peace. This year marks the USA's 68th Veterans Day observance.
Freedom is not free and has always come at a great price. Though the lives of men and women who did not run away from service to their country, if we totaled the numbers from all of America's wars throughout our history, more than 1 million American military personnel have died in service to the United States of America. Almost 1.5 million persons who were wounded in combat survived, with their wounds becoming a constant reminder of their service to this country. And nearly 16.2 million former military service members are living today. They make up that very special group of Americans we call veterans. Today we gather to honor them and offer a heartfelt thank you for all they have done to preserve the freedoms that we enjoy and cherish every day.
At this time, please welcome our music teacher, Mr. Bahari, as he leads our student body in the song, Proud of Our Veterans.
I'm getting old and I need these. Hi, I'm Mrs. Baumann. I'm the PE teacher here at HighPoint. We are now going to individually recognize each veteran. As we call your name, please stand if you are able, and your student will come give you a token of our sincere appreciation. Audience, please hold your applause until we have recognized each and every veteran. And then, in HighPoint style, we will give them one giant, spectacular round of applause. So, we will start. Again, when you hear your name, if you're able, please stand. And I'll try and say them nice and loud. Marvin C. Rogers, Marines, World War II, escorted by Chase Dahlman. Cal Dworkin, Army, Vietnam, escorted also by Chase Dahlman. Chris Jose, Army, Global War on Terrorism, escorted by Alex and Olivia Jose. Dennis Davis, Navy, escorted by James Cahill and Jagger McClure. Elizabeth Deshaw, Army, escorted by Alec Shemansky. Elmer Penny, Navy, Gulf War, escorted by Emma Penny. George Butts, Air Force, escorted by Nolan Walker. James Roars, Army, escorted by Charlotte McCullough. Jason Plant, Army, escorted by Remy and Lila Plant. John Owensky, Marine, escorted by Derek Perryman. Justin Stacy, Army, Global War on Terrorism, escorted by Emma Stacy, also husband of second grade teacher Mrs. Stacy. Kelly Jeffries, Coast Guard, escorted by Jack and Lucy McKee. Ken Bednar, Army, escorted by Andrew Bednar. Larry Swank, Army, Vietnam, escorted by Ben and Leah Dunlap. Luke Baumann, Navy, escorted by Nora Hobbs and Gabby Sissa, also husband of me, Mrs. Baumann. Major John Huffstetler, Army, Global War on Terrorism, escorted by Lily Podkin. Richard Harder, Air Force, Vietnam, escorted by Hadley and Kylie Harder. Excuse me, 1 second. That is Richard Harder, U.S. Army.
From the top. Roland Snow, Air Force, Vietnam, escorted by Nina, Marion, and Gemma Snow. Ron Ishmael, Army, escorted by Carolina Ishmael. Terrence Akers, Army, escorted by Chase Polk. Thomas Davidson, Air Force, Global War on Terrorism, escorted by Tatum and Eden Davidson. Tom Ike, Army, escorted by Brinley Ike. Tony Madison, Army, escorted by Noah Gibson. William Burrow, Army, Vietnam, escorted by Avery and Vaughn Stanish. Aaron Shirker, Army, active duty, escorted by Micah, Rylan, and Sierra Shirker. Alan Foster, Army, Vietnam, escorted by Liliana Foster Moore. Barry Darrow, Navy, Gulf War, escorted by Ellie and Tovey Skaggs. Bill Stone, Air Force, escorted by Caden and Gavin Shoshanis. And if I can pause, Bill's wife Shirley is in the room. Shirley Stone was HighPoint's very first building secretary. And I'm not sure where she is. Wave to us, Shirley. It's great to have you here. Calvin Darnell Cobaris, Marine Global War on Terrorism, escorted by Calvin Cabarrus Jr. Christopher Moore, Army, escorted by Eliza Milo. David Bruton, Army, escorted by Henry and Graham Heinzelman. Jack Wilson, Coast Guard, escorted by Julia and Lane Russo. Jonathan Stover, Navy, Global War on Terrorism, escorted by Kelly Murin. Laura Young, Air Force, escorted by Riley and Carson Young. Paul Young, Air Force, escorted by Riley and Carson Young.
Matt Crow, Air Force, active duty, escorted by Olivia and Porter Crow. Ron Fishel, Army, Vietnam, escorted by Callum Balo. Scotty Lucas, Army, Korean War, escorted by Paisley and Chloe Saunders. T.R. Stout, Air Force, active duty, also escorted by Paisley and Chloe Saunders. Terry Roney, Army, escorted by Ryan Roney. Theron Ward, Army, Korean War, escorted by Riley Schumacher. Tom Von Haney, Army, Vietnam, escorted by Molly Newman. Ulysses Grant Jr., Air Force, escorted by Trinity Brandt. Carver Ely, Army, Global War on Terrorism, escorted by Cadence Coleman. Diane Schoolcraft, Army, Vietnam, escorted by Emma and Layla Sisler. Jack Schoolcraft, Army, Vietnam, escorted also by Emma and Layla Sisler. Ebony Davis, Air Force, active duty, escorted by Avery Davis. Thank you. Edward Hurst, Navy, escorted by Corey Griffin. J. Stephen Phillips, Army, escorted by Blake Phillips. James Stafford, Air Force, Vietnam, escorted by Weston and Alton Dangle. Jim Mathis, Air Force, escorted by Daphne Mathis. Joseph G. Bogner, Air Force, Vietnam, escorted by Remy Bogner.
L.B. Hodge, Army, Gulf War, escorted by Zara and Zola Thomas. Zara and Zola Thomas. Robert Tenner, Air Force, Vietnam, escorted by Garrett Tenner. Rodney Elgin, Air Force, Vietnam, escorted by Alexander Elgin. Roger Kafer, Army, Vietnam, escorted by Charlotte and Kellen Mill. Ryan Peterson, Army, active duty, escorted by Langley Canners. Timothy Volker, Navy, Global War on Terrorism, escorted by Cameron Wiedebrook. Tom Nelson, Army, Vietnam, escorted by Isley Merlesina. Bob Teague, Marine, escorted by Tristan Teague. Dakota Olson, Air Force, Global War on Terrorism, escorted by Rylan Olson. Darren Hayhurst, Army, Global War on Terrorism, escorted by Evelyn Miller. Guy Atkinson, Army, Vietnam, escorted by Anna Atkinson. Jason Windish, Marine, Global War on Terrorism, escorted by Vivian Windish. Jeremy Pape, Air Force, Global War on Terrorism, escorted by Jannie Pape, husband of kindergarten teacher Mrs. Pape. Tom Pape, Air Force, Gulf War, escorted by Jannie Pape, father-in-law of Mrs. Pape. Lieutenant Commander Scott Boyer, Navy, Gulf War, escorted by Cammie and Willow Boyer, father-in-law of third grade teacher Mrs. Boyer. Raymond W. Pierce, Navy, Gulf War, escorted by Regan Summer. Robert Wayne McDonald, Air Force, escorted by Deji Aflabi. Aflabi, is that it? Afalabi. Thank you. I'm learning new words today.
And I have to say, boys and girls, you're making me really proud right now. Earl Collier, Army, Vietnam, escorted by Kinsley Collier. Steve Kurtzis, Navy, Vietnam, escorted by Morgan and Violet Popa. William Sink, Navy, escorted by Gianna Mueller. David Johnston, Marine, Global War on Terrorism, escorted by Grayson Johnston. Bob Hall, Air Force, Vietnam, escorted by Beckett Hall. Glenn Bonnet, Air Force, Vietnam, escorted by Henry Bonnet, father-in-law of 5th grade teacher Mrs. Bonnet. Patrick Helber, Army, Global War on Terrorism, escorted by Max Helber. Arturo Benevent, Air Force, Vietnam, husband of our building sub, Beth Benevent. Carl Emmenegger, Navy, grandpa of 1st grade teacher, Mrs. Cook. And then we have just a couple more. This is our VFW and our honor guard. So Andrew and Avery, this is, yep, they're ready to go. Dick Posick, William Lindsay, Gary Felicetta, Malcolm Glasgow, and John George. So, you know that big round of applause that you've been so patiently waiting for? Well, now it's time.
Thank you, students. You have been great. We will now have a reading explaining the different branches of the U.S. military by 5th grade students, Carolina Ishmael, who will tell us about the Army, Tatum Davidson will tell us about the Air Force, Chase Polk will talk about the Navy, Derek Perriman will tell us about the Marines, and Jack McKee will talk about the Coast Guard.
The United States of America is a branch of the armed service responsible for military land operations. The Army must be prepared to use swift, forceful action to overcome any enemy that might threaten the United States or its interests in other parts of the world. It also helps train the military forces for many friendly countries and supplies them with equipment. The U.S. Army is the only branch of the service that goes all the way back to the Revolutionary War. The Army's motto is, "This will defend."
The United States Air Force is the branch of the armed forces responsible for most military operations in the air and in space. Air Force reconnaissance satellites and aircraft constantly scan the Earth for signs of hostile activity. To discourage attacks on the United States or its allies, the Air Force maintains the power to strike back immediately with conventional or nuclear weapons. The Air Force also supports ground troops in battle and protects them from air attack. Air Force transport planes deliver troops and supplies. The new motto of the Air Force is above all.
The United States Navy is the branch of the armed forces of the United States that acts to maintain and regulate the system. In times of peace, the Navy often serves as an instrument of international relations. The very presence of naval vessels may be helpful in keeping a crisis from spreading into war. Navy ships also seen on the areas of emergency, such as carrying food and medical supplies to disaster areas. Merchant vessels and passenger ships often call on the Navy for aid in emergencies. Not self, but country is the Navy's unofficial motto.
The United States Marines are soldiers who serve at sea and in special missions on land and in the air.
Marines also serve in ambitious operations, seaborne operations that involve naval, air, and land forces. Marines receive specialized training for the tasks they are expected to perform. Nearly all the major maritime nations maintain Marine forces or some type of naval infantry. The motto of the U.S. Marine is Semper Fidelis, which means always faithful.
The United States Coast Guard serves as a chief agency for protecting life and property at sea and enforcing United States maritime laws. The Coast Guard fights smuggling, protects ships and ports, and rescues victims of sea disasters in peacetime. It operates as a branch of the Department of Transportation. In time of war, it becomes an active part of the United States Navy. The Coast Guard many duties give special meaning to its motto. Semper Paratus means always ready.
Veterans, now is one of your very favorite parts. Our students are going to sing the very famous Armed Service Medley. So, veterans, when you hear your branch, you are more than welcome if you are able to stand up. And this will be led by Mr. Bahari, our music teacher.
Students, thank you for your singing today. It has been outstanding. At this time, I'm going to ask everyone to listen carefully as fifth graders Lily Podkin and Emma Stacy explain the history of the gun salute and taps.
ago, we performed a ceremonial gun salute outside on the playground, and they used this done out of military command. If this is your first Veterans Day assembly here at HighPoint, it is important to tell you that when the rifles were fired, they were very loud. They might have been startled to you. When they fire their rifles today, they are using a special ammunition that just makes a lot of noise. They are not firing actual bullets. The gun salute will then be followed by the playing of taps. Taps is a short song played on a bugle or trumpet that has for many years been a signal to soldiers that it was the end of the day and time to put the lights on and go to sleep. More than 200 years ago, the military used short pieces of music played on a bugle to send messages and instructions to the soldiers. They used this method before they had other ways, such as microphones and speaker systems to communicate with large numbers of people.
Beginning in 1891, taps was used regularly at military funeral ceremonies. It is now also played at wreath-laying ceremonies, memorial services, and during special events like today's Veterans Day observance. There are no official words to taps, but here is one of the more familiar verses that have been used with the tune. The words are very simple, yet extremely powerful. Day is done, gone the sun. From the hills, from the lake, from the sky, all is well, safely rest, God is nigh. Taps causes us to remember all the patriots who have served our country behind in battle. It has become the most familiar bugle call and one that moves all who hear it. Please remain silent as the honor guard now performs the gun salute, followed immediately with the playing of taps. And please remember, the correct response is playing of taps is completely silent.
concludes our program for today. We thank you all for coming and allowing us to honor and celebrate you veterans. Veterans, guests, and your students, you're invited to a reception in the cafeteria to make sure to get your picture taken at some of the photo booths. We started off with 3 or 4, and I think we ended up with 6 or 7. So make sure that you get your student and get a photo. And we just, again, want to thank you for attending. We are forever, forever grateful. With that said, classes, you will exit the gym first. You're going to look to your teacher. If you brought a veteran today, you will remain seated. Classes K through 2, you're going to go out the back, and then 3 through 5 will go out the back doors. Hang tight, and then we'll get you